You ever feel like you're just drowning in a sea of spiritual rules, like do this, don't do that? Well, Colossians chapter 2, it's basically a declaration of independence from all that. It's this incredible journey from being trapped by rules to finding real freedom in one person. So let's do this. We're going to walk through it verse by verse, and I'm telling you, we're going to make this chapter unforgettable.
All right, so verse 1 kicks things off right away. And Paul isn't just, writing a casual, friendly letter. He uses the word conflict. I want you to picture an ancient wrestler, right? Muscles bulging, straining, just fighting for his life in the arena. That's Paul. He's spiritually wrestling, giving it everything he's got for people he's never even laid eyes on. Talk about being all in. So, what's he fighting for? Verse 2 tells us exactly why. He says he wants their hearts to be knit together in love. And, let's picture that literally. Imagine individual hearts, and they're being woven together with these threads of golden light. It's creating this strong, gorgeous, unbreakable tapestry of community. See, it's not about going it alone. It's all about being connected in a way that just brings this amazing clarity and understanding. Okay, but where does this incredible understanding and clarity actually come from? Well, verse 3 has the answer. It says that in Christ are hidden all, not some, but all, the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Think about that. Imagine Christ is like this master treasure chest, and when you crack it open, it's not just gold and jewels spilling out. No way. It's this brilliant light, and inside you see galaxies, complex formulas, literally all the secrets and brilliance of the entire universe. It's all right there. And getting a hold of that treasure is absolutely crucial. Which brings us to Paul's first big warning in this chapter. He's basically saying, hey, listen up. I'm telling you this because there are spiritual scammers out there. You know the type. Picture a slick salesperson, a charming smile, and they're holding out this gorgeously wrapped gift box. It looks incredible, but then you open it, and it's totally empty. That's what he's warning against, falling for a great sales pitch that has absolutely nothing to back it up.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Paul isn't just worried about them. He's also, super proud of their strength. Even though he's far away, he's like a proud general looking over his troops. He pictures them on the battlefield of faith, and they're not some chaotic mob running around. Nope, they're in perfect formation, shields locked together, standing firm, absolutely unshakable. So, how do they keep that strength up? Verse 6 gives us the key. It says, "Since you've received Christ, now walk in him." See, receiving Christ, that's not the finish line, not even close. It's the starting line of a whole new journey. The picture in your head should be someone taking that very first step onto a brightly lit path, and just up ahead, they can see the figure of Christ leading them. The whole journey is just about following him. But, okay, how do you walk that path and not trip all over yourself? Verse 7 has the answer. You need deep roots. So picture that person we just saw on the path. Now imagine them transforming into this massive oak tree. Their feet just become these huge, deep roots, digging way down, anchoring them so firmly into the ground, and that ground is Christ. That's what makes you unshakable. It's those roots. And you better believe that strong foundation is going to be tested. This brings us to another really critical warning. The word Paul uses for cheat here, it literally means to be carried off as plunder, like you've been kidnapped. So go back to that person, that strong tree. Now imagine them being tempted to leave the path. There's a cloaked figure luring them toward this shimmering mirage out in the desert, and it's got a big sign on it that says, "Empty promises." The bottom line, Paul is screaming, don't get kidnapped by bad ideas. So what makes Christ the only path worth sticking to? Really. Verse 9 gives us one of the most powerful, mind-blowing reasons in the entire Bible. It says that in Jesus, the entire fullness of God lives in a physical, human body. He's not just a reflection. He's not just a messenger. He's the real deal. To picture this, see a silhouette of Christ, but inside that shape you see swirling galaxies, glowing nebulae, the entire raw power of the Godhead, all contained in him. Wow! And because of who he is, because he is that fullness, verse 10 tells us something incredible about ourselves. It says we are made complete in him. Think of your life as this really complex jigsaw puzzle, and there's one really important piece missing right in the center. You just can't be whole without it. Well, Christ is that final perfectly fitting piece. The moment he's placed in your life, the whole picture finally makes sense. It's complete. Okay, this next verse uses some really deep imagery to describe how we're transformed. Paul calls it a circumcision made without hands. Forget the physical thing for a second. This is a spiritual surgery. I want you to see God himself as a master sculptor.
And in his hand is a tool made of pure light, and he's using it to chip away all the rough, unwanted bits of stone from a statue, and that statue is you. He's revealing the perfect masterpiece he always intended you to be.
And that spiritual surgery leads to this profound change, which verse 12 shows us through the picture of baptism. And listen, this is so much more than just getting wet. It's a burial and a resurrection. Just picture it. Someone sinks down into dark, murky water. That's their old life gone. And then, bam, they burst up out of the surface into this brilliant, warm sunlight, gasping for air, totally new, totally transformed.
Verse 13 then takes a second to remind us what we were like before that moment. Imagine an old black and white photograph of someone. They're lifeless, completely still. Everything is just gray. And then, suddenly, a divine hand reaches into the picture, and it gently wipes away all the smudges, all the stains of wrongdoing. And as it does, the photo just explodes into vibrant living color. That's forgiveness. That's what it does.
And from there, we move into the courtroom. This is the legal drama of our salvation. So picture a long ancient scroll. It's a legal document, and at the top it says list of charges, and it details every single thing you've ever done wrong. Then the camera zooms in for a dramatic close-up. A huge iron nail is hammered right through the middle of that scroll, pinning it to the wood of a cross. Just like that, your debt is publicly, officially canceled. Done.
So you have to ask, was the cross a defeat? Verse 15 shouts, absolutely not. It was the ultimate victory parade. You have to see Christ here, not as a victim, but as a triumphant Roman general, leading a massive parade through the streets. And marching behind him, totally disgraced, are all the defeated shadowy spiritual enemies. Their weapons are broken, their crowns are shattered on the ground. The cross wasn't a loss, it was a total epic victory.
And because of that victory, verse 16 declares our freedom. The game has changed. From now on, nobody gets to be the spiritual rule police for you. Nobody. So imagine someone wagging their finger in your face, trying to judge you for what you eat or when you worship. And then all of a sudden, a shield of pure light just materializes and blocks their judgment. They have zero authority over you anymore.
But why? Why don't those old rules matter anymore? Verse 17 explains it perfectly. They were just a shadow. So picture someone standing in the bright sun. On the ground, you can see their dark, flickering shadow. The old rules? That was like being obsessed with the shadow. But Paul is saying, hey, stop staring at the shadow. Turn around and look at the real thing, the solid person who's actually casting it. Christ is the substance. He's the reality.
But listen, this freedom is a prize, and it can be stolen. That's why Paul is not done with the warnings. The word he uses for cheat here actually means to be disqualified, like an umpire yelling, "You're out." Imagine a runner, they're just about to cross the finish line and get the winner's trophy. But someone else who's pretending to be all humble and spiritual subtly sticks out a foot and trips them at the last second. Paul's point is clear. Don't let anyone disqualify you from your prize.
So how do you make sure you don't get tripped up? The answer is right here in verse 19. You have to hold fast to the head. Real spiritual life, real growth, it doesn't come from a rule book. It comes from the source. For this one, visualize a body that's made entirely of light, and it's connected to this brilliantly glowing head. That's Christ. And you can just see all the energy, all the nourishment, all the life itself flowing down from that head and sustaining the entire body.
And all of this brings Paul to his big, logical conclusion. He asks a really simple, almost obvious question. He says, look, if you died with Christ and were raised to a whole new life, why on earth are you going back to the old basic rules? It's completely absurd. It'd be like that person who burst out of the baptismal water totally new and someone hands them a kindergarten rule book titled How to Get Wet. They just stare at it, completely confused. It makes zero sense.
Verse 21 pretty much gives us the soundtrack of this man-made religion, and it's just this chorus of no and don't. Picture 3 giant imposing warning signs. They're in that stark, authoritarian red and black, and they're just screaming at you, do not touch, do not taste, do not handle. It's all about restriction, restriction, restriction.
And what are all these rules even about? Verse 22 tells us they're about stuff that perishes with use. In other words, temporary things. So picture those objects from the warning signs, maybe a fancy cup or a piece of fruit. Now just watch as they start to decay, turning into dust, and then just blowing away in the wind. That's the point. These man-made rules are all built on things that were never meant to last.
And now, in the final verse of his whole argument, Paul delivers the knockout punch. He says, sure, these man-made rules, they might look impressive. They have an appearance of wisdom. So for a final image, picture someone wearing this incredibly elaborate, heavy religious mask. It makes them look so ancient and wise. But it's just a mask, and if you could look behind it, you'd see their faces just exhausted, stressed out, and totally unchanged. Because at the end of the day, these rules are powerless. They can't actually change a person's heart.
So what's the takeaway? Colossians 2 is this incredibly powerful reminder that a real spiritual life isn't about checking boxes on an external list of rules. It's about being internally, vitally connected to the person of Christ. He's the source of all wisdom. He's the reality that makes us whole. And He is the power behind our freedom. And so, that leaves us with the one big question that this whole chapter has been building to. A question for all of us. Is my life built on the real thing? On the substance? Or am I still getting distracted, still chasing after the empty, fleeting shadows of man-made rules?